We have next coming up, we have our Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Rajkumar Raut also sitting here. But before that, we have His Excellency Benedikt Höskuldsson. He's the Ambassador of Iceland to India. I welcome you, sir, on the stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege to introduce His Excellency, a distinguished leader in sustainable energy and climate action. As Senior Advisor at Sustainable Energy for All, based in Vienna, Benedikt brings a wealth of global experience, having served as a senior diplomat for Iceland's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where he led initiatives on natural resources, environment, and renewable energy. So I now welcome Dr. Payal Kanodia also to be on the stage. Ma'am.
This is the last thing we should have done.
Thank you. Thank you for, thank you for coordination, Ruchika. So reason for having His Excellency here is that we, in India, we talk about climate deterioration. There are multiple issues, but then there are good practices also happening elsewhere in the world. Now, His Excellency is here. He has kindly accepted to be here with us and share the kind of practices that is there in Iceland, which is helping the country and the world also to be nature friendly. So here he is telling us and sharing with us the best practices, good practices that is being followed in his country, from where India and Indians can also learn. Sir, I welcome you on the dais.
Dr. Solanki, my first message to this group is listen to what Dr. Solanki said. This is really what is at heart. It's about energy. Now, I've had the privilege, so I'm Benedikt Höskuldsson, I'm the Ambassador of Iceland to India. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the invite, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. Before coming here in August, I served as the Special Envoy for Climate on behalf of Iceland. So I've been engaged in the climate discussions for a long time. And I'm an optimist. I am an optimist. I agree wholeheartedly that it's I. But when all the I's come together, it's actually us and we. So the us and we is still there, but we need to look at oneself first before we look at others. So I'm going to go around the world in a different way. My country is a tiny little country up in the North Atlantic, part of Europe. It has a story. It has a story to tell. It's quite an interesting story. We are an industrialized country, fully advanced, one of the richest per capita in the world, if you look at the economic measurements of the economy. We are blessed as a country with a lot of clean energy resources, mainly hydropower and geothermal. And very lately we've started to harness wind. But we are self-sufficient in a sense that when it comes to our energy resources. The population, being as small as we are, consumes less than 20% of the energy that we produce. Hence, we need to import heavy power-intensive industries to the country to use some of the energy that we produce. Now, the trees can be helpful in the sense that when you reach a level of energy transformation as my country has, where we have 100% of electricity through renewable energy, clean energy, hydropower, and geothermal. We have over 99% of all our space heating, which could be cooling because we use geothermal for that, and geothermal can be used for both space cooling and heating. We've quite advanced when it comes to the energy transition per se. So that's where LULUCF kicks in, which is a part of the Paris Agreement, and we are party two, which is land use change, and forestry. So because we are so advanced in terms of the transition that we need to take, we actually benefit from planting trees. It helps for us to achieve our goal when it comes to the Paris Agreement and the NDCs that we have committed to, which are the nationally determined contributions of Iceland to the Paris, and that is to become fossil fuel neutral, free by 2040, by becoming then the first industrialized country in the world, fossil fuel free. It is, according to the International Energy Agency, 75% of the climate issues that we're faced with stem from power, fossil fuel utilization, generation, whatever. So you have to listen to what Dr. Polanki said. It is about energy. So SDG 7, you had the 17 SDGs up there. At the heart of it is 7. And I was privileged to take a leave of absence from my ministry in 2016 and serve for 6 years in Sustainable Energy for All, which only focuses on SDG 7. So I'm familiar with SDG 7. I am so impressed with India's progress in terms of eradicating energy poverty. When I came into SE for All in Vienna in 2016, the number of people without access to electricity was well over 1 billion people. Through mainly India's efforts, that number has been reduced. It still stands at 650 million, and 80% of that is in Africa, which is way too much because, remember, the pledge that we made to all of us together in 2015, before we signed the Paris Agreement, was the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and there it states very clearly, leave no one behind. Leave no one behind. So we need to make sure that everybody has access to clean, affordable energy. And it has since been, and I think it was the IPCC that came to the conclusion that if we are to reach the Paris Agreement targets, you let me know if I'm talking too long. No. I'm passionate about it, so rest assured. If we are to achieve Paris, we need to pass SDG 7 by 2030. And ladies and gentlemen, the news is we're not on track. We are not on track. We all need to do better, or I need to do better. I'll take that one. I'm gonna adopt to your method, and I'm gonna say I need to do better. So we have a lot to do. But there are, since we came to the conclusion that we needed to go through the energy transformation, we needed to achieve the SDGs, we found out that there is no one solution to this problem. I always describe the problem as being a picture of mosaic with a lots of mosaic pieces, and we all can contribute to those. So what we found out is that, there is no one solution, so we all have to find out ways to do things the best way we sort of serve our people. And that's why it is also true what was said, that we need to localize not only production, but we have to think local. And if we think local, actually, I think we begin to take our fellow human beings with us on the trip, and we actually can move towards actually leaving no one behind and taking everybody with us. But having said this, I also wanted to go through, as a diplomat, I've been engaged in the Paris dialogue for a long time. I was on the Icelandic side when we negotiated Paris in 2015. And there is a forum, there is the Conference of Parties, which the UNFCCC, the United Nations, undertakes every year, has done so for over 29 years. We had to skip a couple of years due to COVID. And having acknowledged the I, we still have a responsibility as countries. We cannot step away from the fact that we are also responsible as citizens of the world, forming this family of the countries, of the states. And that's where Paris kicks in, and that's where we begin to look at how people are contributing to the reductions. The bad news is, I said, we're not on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 7 for sure not. And there is another bad news, and I hate to be the carrier of this, but we passed the 1.5 degrees. We really have. So there is an urgency now to this matter, and I'm not personally over-optimistic, but I think if the eyes come together, we can do this. So let's hope for that. But the UNFCCC framework, which is where we are working as countries, and I as a diplomat work, I have to acknowledge that. Baku, the last meeting that was held in Baku, in Azerbaijan, gave mixed signals. There was one, and I've been a part of that conversation actually myself when I participated in forming the group that was looking at how do we increase finances. The transition, the energy transition will cost funding. We are way off when it comes to actually funding the transition that is needed. It has been estimated by the UN that the cost per annum per year until 2050 is somewhere around $4 trillion plus a year. We committed in 2015 to bring around, we the donors, the developed countries, we promised to pledge to bring 100 billion every year by 2020. We reached that goal actually 2023, so we were 3 years late in doing that. But in Baku, it was decided to actually pledge further funding, 1.3 trillion by 2035, and that's still short, to be honest. It's still short. But the good news is that if there is a need of $4 trillion for the transition to take place globally, that would represent 1% of the private sector's investment portfolio, 1%. So the money is there. The million-dollar question is, how do we get the funding? And that's where we actually have the elephant in the room. I'm not going to go into that. That's a complicated story. But basically, there is an ongoing argument amongst the UNFCCC members, the countries. How do we finance the climate action that's needed? I can just tell you, from my perspective, it's not going to come from the budget of my government. It's too big of a number. So we need everybody on board. We need philanthropies. We do need the private sector. We need first and foremost the private sector, and that means that we need to move away from the thinking that the energy transition is costly. We've done it in my country, and the most profitable companies that we have are the energy companies, and they are only producing geothermal, and hydro, and they are the most. Actually, they're the most profitable countries. So don't give me the excuse that it's going to cost us. It's actually a profitable business. Trust me. And the reason for why we went through this was that we knew and I'm going to go back in history, when the oil crisis hit us in the 70s, there were 2 oil crises in the 1970s. We knew as a small country that we would actually default if we were to try to finance our economy through energy from fossil fuels. So that's where we were literally forced to go from fossil fuels, from coal, from oil and diesel, into hydropower and geothermal. So it was through that sort of efforts that we made that change. So finance is one. Now, the global stocktake remains a cornerstone of the Paris Agreement because it's to help us refocus. When we're not on track, we need to change what we're doing. If what we're doing is not working, we need to change. But the stocktaking is a stalled process in terms of the UNFCCC. And I personally, having left the team, of course, residing now in Delhi, I'm hopeful that actually Brazil can help us. Brazil is the new host, will actually head the presidency of the COP30 in Brazil. And so I'm hopeful that we will see some positive developments. The just transition is, you know, you spoke about it. I want to talk about it. It is a fundamental issue. Just transition is a fundamental issue. But when we talk about just transition, sometimes in the developed, in the industrialized, we start all of a sudden beginning to look at, you know, coal workers as if they are the, you know, they are the people who are going to be left behind. That is not the issue. Just transition is to actually eradicate energy poverty, as it is. As I told you, it's over 600 million, of it's 80% consists in Africa. There are 2 billion people who do not have access to clean energy for cooking. And there are millions of people and children who die, especially, primarily women and children who die from unclean cooking every year. And if we achieve Paris, we have to pass through SDG 7. We're not on track. So, like they say, you know, go figure. You know, we need to do something. So, just transition is not a word. It really means bringing everybody along. And this is where my country is very focused because we have achieved quite a lot in terms of empowering women, particularly women in our economy and in our life. And I think we rank among probably the top countries in the world when it comes to gender equality. But that's the just transition that we need. We cannot leave women or children or anybody behind in this effort. So I'm proud of my country having reached that, but we need to do more. I need to do more. Now, Baku again was very unsuccessful when it comes to actually addressing the phasing out fossil fuels. And it's really difficult. And I'm speaking now very truthfully to you. Diplomats sometimes do have a tendency not to tell quite the truth, but we need to phase out fossil fuels. There is no alternative to that. That's why the transition is so important. And Baku did not succeed in actually doing that. And it's very difficult when you have the hosts of the conferences being major oil producers. That's not helpful, to be honest. But we need to do this, and we really now need to look into the mirror at ourselves and say, okay, this has to. And if we don't begin to succeed in phasing out fossil fuels, we're not going to succeed, as far as I can see. So I will just say that because of this, we really need to look at leadership. Leadership amongst the countries is of paramount importance. We need all countries to step up, and I'm saddened by the fact that the U.S. new administration has actually withdrawn from the Paris Agreement. The good news in the U.S. is that the states are quite active and quite good in actually addressing those issues themselves, so it's not a lost cause, but it's at least delayed cause. I think that Brazil will need to focus on biodiversity and forests. Look at Amazon. Amazon are the lungs of the globe, so we need to be very clear on that. But going forward, we have to work together. We 17, SDG 7, number 17, talks about partnerships, if I remember correctly. We need to break the boxes. We really need to step now out of the boxes and see how can we do this differently. Business as usual doesn't work. It's not going to work. And we have to think not about us, not about our children, but the generations that actually follow. So I'm going to be hopeful because now I've learned the I, and I'm going to stop here. I'm happy to take the questions afterwards, but as you can hear, I'm very passionate about this. This means a lot, and we really, I in the plural, need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.